From Wakefield, it's the Nolan Car Night Show. Everybody enjoying Nolan as guest this week, Antonio Reynolds Dean to the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the podcast. And I was just talking to my guest earlier about talking to a former URI player who was legendary in his own right. And I'm lucky and honored to have another person who really set the stage on what URI basketball is all about, really helped them bring him to a high level. And he's still doing that in his coaching experiences across the country and several different programs and bringing success to them as he's recently the new associate head coach of the University of Georgia men's Bulldogs basketball team. He is the one and only coming from Georgia. He is Antonio Reynolds Dean. Coach, how are you doing today?
Thank you. Doing great. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to a great interview.
And now here in Rhode Island, now that it's summertime, it's getting a little bit warmer, not super warm. What's the weather like right now in Georgia?
Unbearable, fun, hot, sweaty, sticky, but as they say, it's always 70 degrees in every single gym around the country. So we're managing to get by right now.
And the thing is, coming from a being the son of a coach myself, the hot weather helps to take away the weaker athletes from the stronger, mentally tough athletes. So I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, I see it all the time. But like I said, it's 70 degrees in that gym, and right now we're just starting our summer workouts, and so far so good.
That's the most you can look at and take from it. Now, I mentioned earlier, congratulating you on the new job you have at the University of Georgia. Besides that new job you just took and that you got, how's life been for you during these wild times?
No, everything's been good. I tell everybody right now I'm living out my dream. Not many coaches can say they coached at two of their dream schools, Georgia and Rhode Island. I played at Rhode Island,
Yeah.
coached there. So Rhode Island is my second home, Georgia is my first home, and I coached at the University of Rhode Island and Georgia, and it's a dream come true for me.
On top of that, and I'll mention it later on in this conversation, you are, to my knowledge, the only player and coach to win an A10 to make it to the big dance, and I believe an A10 championship, if I'm corrected.
Oh wow, that's something I didn't know, but yeah, I did accomplish those things, and those memories they go back, and every March that comes around, I always think about the University of Rhode Island and my time as a player, and also my time as a coach. My heart still pumps Kenny Blue.
Exactly,
So
that's what we want to see. And
everywhere I go, I'm a grad of the University of Rhode Island.
exactly what I share that with you, and the memories I have of, although I'm not a player, I like to say I'm the James Jones of basketball. I put in a few minutes worth of time. I shoot a bunch, don't make all of them, but I still provide. But as a fan, watching games and hearing stories is always a great thing. The first question I want to ask you, upon doing research and stuff, reading that you had success in high school before you went to URI, a two-time All-State athlete at Douglas High School. Prior to those moments where you were very good in high school, when could you tell that your athletic ability in basketball, or maybe sports in general, was a little higher up than those around you?
Probably around 10 years old. I was probably the best kid in my neighborhood. And whenever I got matched up against someone my age, I was always the best player. And from that moment on, my dad just kept the basketball in my hand, and 10 turned to 12, 12 turned to 15, that turned to AAU, high school, and that's where my story began.
We see nowadays on television, all over social media, and you being a college coach, you have a role in that with bringing players in and seeing that recruitment phase to a certain extent. You see how big of an extravaganza that experience is and that process is for college athletes. They have their hat and their jersey and their parents are there and all that stuff, but you don't really talk about it. And I've talked about it with former URI players on here, of the process and the experience it was for the high school versions of those athletes, maybe like yourself and Tom Garrick and Morgan Cena, for getting looked at from different colleges and how that experience was for them. How did you, being that you were a good athlete, as I just mentioned in high school, two-time All-State basketball player, how did you deal with at that age, schools looking at you and the attention that you were getting for that?
Well, obviously the landscape has totally changed. I hate to use the words back in my day, but back in those days, There wasn't social media and the attention that's being garnered by the athletes today. We didn't have that platform. All we had was AAU in high school, and right now these guys have AAU, social media, and you can become a overnight sensation off one game. I think in my day it was a little harder. We had guys that were really good in the state, and a guy like myself can get lost in the shuffle, and that's how a kid from Atlanta, Georgia, can end up at the University of Rhode Island. I think in today's game, a kid like me would never leave the state or never leave the Southeast because there's just so much more exposure. With the little bit of exposure that I did have, I was able to get at the University of Rhode Island, which was still a good level for me. But I think if I was coming up in today's society, I probably wouldn't make it out of the Southeast.
Interesting. You go to URI. Al Skinner's the coach. He'd been there for a handful of years, both as an assistant and then as a head coach. Did that make it easier for you to select URI, seeing as he'd been there for a while and he had some success as a coach?
Yes, I think Al Skinner and his staff did a great job recruiting me. They had to convince my grandmother first. She was, we didn't know what Rhode Island was, to be honest with you. I vividly remember playing in the Boston Shootout. I made the team in Georgia back then. The big tournament was the Boston Shootout in downtown Boston. And forgive me for this, but at the time at 17, I didn't even know Boston was that close to Rhode Island. So they introduced me in the starting lineup, and this sea of blue, and people started chanting my name. And my teammates and I started looking back in the crowd like, who are these people? And after the game, I met all the URI fans, and it was like such a big deal for them to see me play. And obviously, I had a good game against Stephon Marbury and the New York team, and we ended up winning the game.
Wow.
I was player of the game, and that's when everybody explained to me, like, you're in New England. Like, Rhode Island is like an hour away, and we're diehard Rhodey fans.
Sure.
It was a great experience.
Well, you came in a time, there was the Tom Garrett, Silk Owens years where they were very good, Sweet 16. Then they had the Abdullah Fox period where they make the NIT and NCAA appearance. But what sticks out to your story, and you had firsthand knowledge and those around you, you come in and you help usher in success again, but success very quickly early on with NIT appearances, NCAA tournament appearances, and of course, the Elite Eight run near the end of your time at URI. What was that conversation like with Al Skinner in terms of what you had to provide early on for that team, seeing as what they just finished doing?
It's funny you asked that question. That was a great question. They were 7-20 before I got there, and I remember on my official visit, Tyson Willer and Coutinho was like, "We're just one player away from making a big jump," and I believe those guys, and I had a good time on my visit. It was a little cold around my birthday, but everything worked out. And once I arrived on campus, I saw how good they were. Meaning Tyson and Coutinho. And that first year, man, we turned it from 7 wins to 20 wins. And if it wasn't for Coutinho Mobley, medical red shirt when he got injured, we probably would have made the NCAA tournament 4 years in a row.
Wow.
But for us to make it to the NIT without a 12-year pro speaks to the talent we had in our program at that time.
Sure. Well, I want to ask you about that. That's you have at URI nowadays or recently, since Dan Hurley, and nothing against Coach Cox, and hopefully their current coach Archie Miller helps them come back to what you were a part of at URI when you were a coach. There hasn't been a lot of players who experience that sort of success at the program in a while. I mean, you have new freshmen coming in. You had Sebastian Thomas from Rhode Island born playing there, similar to Tom Garrett. But for you, you make the NIT tournament, 3rd round, you guys lose to St. Joe's. That early success, and I asked you about how did you handle the attention as a high schooler. How did you handle that success early on at URI as a young kid?
I wanted more. That first year, I was rookie of the year in the league. My confidence was sky high. We was getting Coutinho back. We knew that we would be a good team that year. And that kind of like started the foundation, right? Preston Murphy came alongside me, and we were just right for a big run. Michael Anderson was still there. Luther Clay transferred in, had to sit out, but he was still a part of the program and going against him every day in practice. And our team just took it to another level. You're talking me as a sophomore, Catino and Tyson as juniors, Preston as a sophomore. So we were young, but we were really good. And I vividly remember us on like a 10-game winning streak. We were the toast of the town, and we handled it pretty good. I thought that was the leadership of Al Skinner. He was always even keel. He never got excited when we won. He never got down when we lost. He was even keel. So that success that we had as freshmen that led us into that sophomore year. And then when Al Skinner left and Jim Harrick came, and that's when we took it to even another level.
Sure.
And what people don't understand about those years is Luther Clay sat out my sophomore year, and we still made the tournament. Lamar Odom sat out my junior year, and we made it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Some people say, not me, some people say we had Lamar Odom that year. We were national champions. We were the best team in college basketball that year. And, we beat Kansas. We beat a lot of people that year. And that was without a lottery pick on our team. So the talent that came through URI from 1995 to like 2000, I mean, in Atlantic 10, there hasn't been another program that produced like 3 NBA players on the same roster at that time.
Yeah.
Like UMass was number 1 in the country. They had one guy get drafted. Virginia Tech was pretty good. Dayton was just okay. Xavier was really good. Temple was good. But if you look back at it, there was only one program that had multiple guys being drafted into the NBA, and that was Rhode Island.
Now, that sophomore year, you do even better. You make the big dance. You guys have an undefeated record against Temple, which Tom Garrett's class wasn't able to do. You beat PC. You killed PC at the Dunkin' Donuts Center that year, which is a positive thing. In that situation, though, you guys do well your freshman year. How do you manage to do even better that year? Is it just new talent coming in that's better, or is it just a better mindset?
Well, we grew. Unlike today's game with the transfer portal, we kept our team intact the whole time. We did everything on the floor and off the floor together, whether it was summer pickup ball, whether it was, back then we lived together and we was always around each other. And we were a very cohesive unit. And that helped us on the court.
Sure.
Like Tyson, Catino, and we lived together. Preston, we had David Arbabu, Luther Clay, Josh King, like all of us still talk to this day. And that just shows you the close-knit bond that we had. And we kept our team together. No one transferred, no one left. Everybody was happy.
Sure.
And everybody fulfilled the role that the coaches put out for us.
Well, and I admire that about the previous teams there that have played at URI, because now in the last few years, you've seen at now both of our alma maters, a lot of players are in and out within a year or so because they're not getting, whether it be what they want to get or what they expect to get, or they're not having the success that previous years have gotten. And you see them down and out of it and complaining, and they're up high when they're up and then they're down. And you mentioned that how you're very even keeled, and that's thanks to Al Skinner. And similar to, I keep mentioning Tom Garrick, but Tom Garrick and Silk Owens, how they had 2 coaches in their 4 years there. Your junior year, Jim Harrick comes in. Nothing against Al Skinner. He's a great coach, a legendary coach in his own right, especially at URI and BC. But what was it like for you and the rest of the team to have Jim Harrick as a new coach that you're especially a few years out from winning the NCAA tournament at UCLA?
Well, first of all, people don't know this. Tyson Wheeler and myself, we was on the search committee
Really?
We were on a search committee to hire a new coach, and I won't name all the candidates that were there, but I remember it was late. It was late night. Probably like around 7-ish. I think Coach Harrick's flight got delayed or something, and we had to wait on him. When he walked in, he had that it factor. It was it. Tyson and I was drawn to him by his style. Obviously, it helped that he uh, won a national title at UCLA. He just had an aura about him, and we wanted to play for him. And ever since then, we told the AD that, hey, that we want him to be our coach. And I'm not saying that our voices and our opinion was the only reason he was hired. He had an unbelievable resume, but I mean, Tyson and I, we went to bat for him, and when he got the job, from the first practice all the way for those 2 years, it was great. It was really good.
I asked you about what Al Skinner asked of you when you first joined the program for the success you guys had your first year. Was there a different conversation or a similar conversation with Jim Harrick now that you're an upperclassman and a leader of the team?
I think their styles were totally different. I think Al Skinner laid the foundation for our toughness in our team, and he was even killed. Jim Harrick was more of a guy that boosts your confidence a lot, per se. I vividly remember him just some of his sayings that stick with us, like, use the glass, Dean. It's the best shot in basketball. You're the best undersized power forward in the country, man. Like he had a way of making you feel. I say this all the time about Jim Harrick. He had a way of making the 12th man feel like he was a part of the win, even if he played like 5 minutes and made one shot. He made that guy feel after the game like he was the reason why we won, and everybody just bought into it.
Your junior year, the historic year that you guys had, a big year. You play many ranked teams. You had a winning record against that. What was, and you mentioned that your confidence is going sky high each year, and you're getting better and teams more cohesive. At that point, were you able to tell that this is the year that we're going to make some damage, if not possibly win it all?
Oh yeah. Luther Clay set out the year before, and then you got a former McDonald's All-American at the 5. You had me, who was Atlantic 10 Rookie of the Year at the 4. You had Josh King, who was probably the best shooter in the conference at the wing, and you had the best backcourt in the entire A10, probably one of the top 3 backcourts in the country at that time. I mean, there was no way we wasn't winning 25 or 30 games that year. And Coach Harrick came in at the right time when everybody was kind of seasoned, and we just took off, man. From the opening, I forget the name of the tournament. They still have it now. It used to end in the Garden, the preseason, but I forget the name of the tournament. But we made it all the way. We lost to UConn. It's funny. We lost to UConn at UConn by 2, and they went on they won a national championship the year later.
Wow.
That same team, Rip Hamilton, Khalid El-Amin. And after that game, we knew it was like if we catch them on a neutral court or in Kenny we beat them by 20 easy.
Sure.
I tell Ricky Moore that all the time. And after that game, we kind of knew. We went from there, and we cruised through the Atlantic 10. And once we got to the tournament, we put some wins together, and that's how you come up with the historic run that we made.
That year, you make the big dance. You blow by Murray State 97-74, followed by then a close win 80-75 against a Paul Pierce-led Kansas team. Besides Paul with Kansas, what was the difference between Murray State, Kansas, and Stanford? Was it close between Kansas and Stanford, or was there a big difference?
We played Stanford early in the year, and we played them in San Francisco because they wouldn't play us anywhere else. I remember Jim Harrick saying that before the game. They won't come nowhere on the East Coast. We're coming out to the West Coast. And they end up beating us by 1 in San Francisco in their backyard. And we played them again. We knew we could beat them on neutral court. The difference between them and Kansas was, they had similar to us. They had a team that had been there at Stanford for a while. They was older. I mean, it was a really good game. I mean, I still don't know. That game haunts everybody in the state of Rhode Island. That probably was our best chance as a program to make it to the Final Four. You know, that game helped me in my life. It taught me life lessons.
Sure.
And I instill that in the players that I coach today. The game is never over, ever, ever, ever
Definitely.
over. I just got to Georgia. I haven't told those guys the story yet, but I will. You know, losing a 7-point lead with a minute to go to the Final Four, gut wrenching.
Sure.
But it doesn't erase everything we accomplished.
Sure.
But that game still resonates with me to this day.
Well, that's good that you can take the positive from it, because nowadays you see with athletes and people of my age, and I have occasionally I've done it as well. I don't want to make it seem like I'm some angel, but you see that they put their heads down, they complain, and always look at the negative, and always they don't look at what they can learn from that situation. For that season, though, and maybe this is a counterproductive question because I may have already asked it in a different fashion, but leading up to that and during that season and leading towards the NCAA tournament, did Coach Harrick ever pull you aside and say, "Hey, listen, I really need you at this point, seeing as we're doing so well and we need to stay at this high level"? Was there any sort of conversation for what you need to be done, or was it just a team sort of conversation?
Well, he instilled in me the confidence to say, I was the enforcer, I was the glue guy, I was the guy that made everything work. I was the rebounder, the leading rebounder, leading shot blocker, the anchor. Defensively, the low post scorer on the team. He clearly stated that in the beginning of the year, and he reiterated that all the way throughout. And he always pulled me aside. Hey, you're playing well. You're playing well. Giving me, little pointers here and there. I wasn't the leader of the team at that time. That was Tyson and Coutinho.
Sure.
But that year helped and shaped and molded me to be the leader for the 99 team.
Sure.
When we lost all of the seniors on that team and we had to start over and regroup. So that experience helped me become the leader that I am today.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. Looking back at it, though, and although the team wasn't able to win the NCAA championship, although they had the most the success in terms of winningest class in URI history. Well, when you look back at it, for you being in the record books for games played, blocks, and I believe it was points, games played, and blocks, coupled with the URI Athletic Hall of Fame, how do you look back at that and accept what you were able to achieve at URI?
Humbling. Those things you said, the one thing that stick out was the URI Hall of Fame. When I got that call, that put everything in its proper perspective. It's much more than wins and losses.
Sure.
I became a man at the University of Rhode Island, and it wasn't just me. We won as a team. The individual accolades are fine, but to just be honored as a member of a Hall of Fame of a university, it doesn't get any bigger than that. So it's not a lot of people that can say they're in the Hall of Fame at their school. So I take that. And that's a very good accomplishment. It's probably the best accomplishment of my life besides being a father.
Sure.
That right there is something that I take with me forever. And the University of Rhode Island, that's why I still bleed Keene blue.
I'm glad to hear that. You have a career overseas of nearly 10 years. After that ends and your playing career ends, although I'm sure you've picked up a basketball to play from time to time since then, how fast did you make that decision to go to coaching, seeing as you did graduate from URI? But what was that decision process like to become a coach?
It's funny you asked me that, and it all ties back to the university. So obviously I played for Al Skinner for 2 years. So, and this doesn't happen to everybody. Like I'm Nolan, I'm the luckiest guy in the country. When I when I was thinking about coming into coaching. Think about this. Al Skinner, head coach at Boston College. Ed Cooley was a special assistant when I was at Rhode Island, head coach at Fairfield. Bill Corn, head coach at Northeastern. Tim O'Shea, head coach at Ohio U. So my entire bench, every coach there was a head coach when I was ready to get in. And they remembered what kind of person I was and what kind of player I was. And I got in just like that without an interview. I remember asking, like, you want the job or what? And I was like, yeah, coach, I'll take it. So I ended up with Ed Cooley at Fairfield for 6 months. And after that 6 months, I was at Northeastern with Bill Coleman, and the rest is history. All due to that URI relationship.
Sure. And that's definitely important to keep a positive mindset regardless of the success you're having. As a player, you mentioned in a previous interview you did within the last year or two, maybe three, of your early experiences at Fairfield as the director of basketball ops, and how that was for you going from playing overseas and having that success. How much of a learning experience for you in accepting what your path would take to become where you are today as an early coach?
It was rough. Any player that played for as long as I did, I took you back to 10 years old all the way to I was like 32, 33. And to go from being on the court to sitting behind a desk, that transition can be rough for some people. And at first, I started off, second guessing myself. Is this really what I wanted to do? But I remember Ed Cooley telling me, if you really want to be successful and you want to be a head coach, you have to go through this process and you have to learn every single position in this office. So when you become a head coach, you know what it's like being a video coordinator. You know what it's like being an ops guy. You know what it's like being an assistant. And you can relate to every single position in the office. And that's some advice that he gave me that I take with me in my coaching career now. And I look back to 2008 to where I am now. It took me 14 years, but I won't trade the process for nothing.
Sure, that definitely it holds value and makes you appreciate things more than others possibly. Whether it be whatever, regardless of the school you've been at, and although you just recently just joined the staff at UGA, you've had success at each program you've gone to with several NCAA appearances and NIT appearances. What attributes to that, whether it be you or the coaching staff in general?
A little bit of both. I'm not to toot my own horn, but I just feel like my biggest attribute is that I'm a winner. Like I love winning. I put in the time, I put in the work. That's just what I do. And I plan on doing the same thing here at University of Georgia. People don't know that is the number one reason why I took the job. Not because it's back home, but because people say you can't do it here anymore. And I just believe you can. I think it's a sleeping giant. And I think we will win here. If you follow my track record, everywhere I've been, I've won, whether it's high school, college, overseas, Northeastern, Clemson, Rhode Island. And like history says that we're going to get it done, and we will.
Sure. You mentioned it, and I said how you were the correlation between your playing and what you attributed to coaching. You make the trip to URI as an assistant coach with Dan Hurley as they're near the peak of their success with Dan Hurley. How special was that? And you've mentioned it, but how special was that for you to be part of that experience back at your alma mater again?
Oh, it was incredible. When people was telling me when I first got the job, hey, they haven't been to the tournament since you left. And I like taking on challenges, personal challenges, and I want to be a part of the team that made it back to the tournament. And we did that. Dan Hurley was an unbelievable coach, and that team was really good. And we had arguments during my time there. Was their team better than mine? They had a really good run. They had some really good pieces, and E.C. Matthews and Jared Terrell and Hassan Martin. I love coaching those guys. To this day, Jared Terrell is one of best guys I coach because of his daily approach. So it meant a lot to me. Like I said, like I know you had Tom Garrick on. He went to the tournament and he coached as well,
Yeah,
but he didn't win an 18 championship.
exactly.
So that's one thing I got over him. If
Exactly.
you're listening, Tom, that's one thing I got on.
For you, and coming from, as I mentioned, being a coach's son, although he coaches tennis and he's been at one program for the last nearly 30 years, no team is similar to the previous one or the next one. They're going to be different athletes, different capabilities and abilities of those players. The big goal, I would think, for a college basketball coach or any college coach is to win the NCAA tournament or at least make it to the big dance. How do you fit that goal as a coach to the different programs you've been with over the years?
Like I said, it's a different challenge at every school. I think here they didn't things didn't turn out the way they're supposed to last year. They made a change and hired Mike White, who's an excellent coach. He's similar to myself, we're the same age, and he had a lot of success at Louisiana Tech, a lot of success at Florida. And, winners want to be around winners.
Sure.
I think every day we're trying to change the mindset that, we can get it done here at Georgia. So every school has different challenges, and the challenge at Rhode Island was what I just said it was. The challenge at Clemson was doing it in ACC against Duke and Kentucky. Now Duke and Carolina. Now, you got the Kentuckys and the Auburns and the Tennessees, and just putting Georgia in the upper echelon of the SEC. That's the challenge.
With the time I have left, because I know you.
Yeah, I gotta run right quick, Nolan. We got practice at 12.
Yeah, I'll ask you one more question. Then I have a little game. The school you see, and maybe it's at UGA or maybe it's other schools. You look up and you see numbers, you see banners besides just dust. How do you put your name in that conversation for you or I with being respectful to others who paved the way for you?
Can you ask that again?
So you see at other schools, they have, you look up, you see numbers, or you see people who are being remembered for what they did with the school. You have had success at the program, and your number should be up there, or your name should be up there respectfully. How do you keep your name in that conversation, but also being, even keeled, that, remembering those who were there before you?
I think the school have done enough. I mean, they put me in the Hall of Fame. That's the biggest honor for me, whether my jersey is hanging up there or not. I think people around the state, they know what our team meant to the community and the university and helping building the Ryan Center. The Hall of Fame induction was A-OK for me. My jersey doesn't get retired. It's A-OK with me. You have Katino Mobley, Tyson Wheeler, those guys probably are before me. But just by me being in the Hall of Fame is really good for me.
The last thing I want to ask you, I have this little segment, a brief segment called the One Word Challenge. I throw out a few names or places or people that have something to do with you, and you say a word or whatever comes to mind when you hear it. So you ready?
All right. It's like one of those Budweiser hot seats.
Yeah. Frederick Douglass High School.
Ooh. You said one word?
One or two.
Coach Dollar.
Keeney Gym.
4,000 screaming fans.
Athens.
Uga.
Kingston.
Mama Leone's.
Jim Harrick.
Leader.
Ed Cooley.
Passionate.
And last but never least, Antonio Reynolds Dean.
A warrior.
Well, Antonio, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do this, having the patience to allow me to speak with you about your trials and in the path you took from high school in Georgia to where you are today. It surely meant a lot to get some insight on what you experienced.
Thank you, Nolan, for the experience, and go Rams and go Dogs.
Well, hopefully whenever this happens and they feel like they want to commemorate the past, as I know you may have mentioned with Nathan Mook with Rhodey Vault, down the line, if when you return to Rhode Island, we'll have to meet up at the Ryan Center if that day comes.
Okay, thank you. I will look forward to it.
Well, all those out there, if you enjoy what you watch, because why the heck wouldn't you? Down the road, when Antonio helps UGA win a national championship, you're going to look back and say, man, I should have subscribed, liked, and comment, shared, and enjoyed and watched that video. Well, in the words of Johnny Carson, bid you all a heartfelt good night. Till next week, my friends. Take care.